The HOA president cracked my safe at 2 a.m., thinking she'd found evidence to destroy me. Instead, she triggered an FBI investigation that would expose the largest HOA corruption scandal in Texas history. Linda Whitmore went from measuring my lawn with a laser level to facing federal charges in 72 hours. She thought my ranch safe contained illegal documents, but what she actually stole made her scream loud enough to wake the entire gated community. The best part? I had it all on camera, including the moment she realized she'd just robbed the FBI. My name is Marcus Sterling, and until 3 months ago, I lived peacefully on my 5-acre ranch in Lakeside Estates, the most exclusive gated community in Austin. At 34, I'd built a successful tech consulting business that let me work from home, raise chickens, and restore vintage motorcycles in my workshop. The property had been in my family for generations, one of the last original ranches before the developers moved in and built McMansions around us. That Tuesday morning in March started like any other. I was feeding my chickens when I heard the distinctive click-clack of designer heels on my gravel driveway. Linda Whitmore, our 60-year-old HOA president, stood at my gate with her iPad, laser measuring device, and the smug expression of someone about to ruin your day. "Mr. Sterling," she called out in her fake sweet voice that fooled nobody, "we need to discuss your violations." I walked over, coffee in hand, already exhausted by whatever power trip she was on today. Linda ruled Lakeside Estates like her personal kingdom, complete with a board of directors who did whatever she said and an enforcement team that made the IRS look friendly. Morning. "Linda, what violations would those be?" She pulled up a photo on her iPad. "Your American flag is 1 inch too large. Regulation clearly states flags must be 3 by 5 feet. Yours is 3 by 5.1 feet. I stared at her. "You measured my flag?" "Of course. That's a $200 fine." She swiped to another photo. "Your mailbox is painted cottage white instead of approved Swiss coffee." Another $300. "Your chickens were observed making noise at 6:03 a.m. 3 minutes past the acceptable livestock sound ordinance window, $500. "Linda, those chickens have been here longer than your HOA. The HOA supersedes all previous land use." She interrupted, pulling out a thick binder. Section 47. Subsection 12. "Oh, and your motorcycle restoration? That's operating a commercial business in a residential zone. Cease immediately, or face a $1,000 per day fine." My blood pressure spiked. "I restore bikes as a hobby. I don't sell them." "You posted photos on Instagram. That's advertising. That's commercial activity." She smiled like a shark smelling blood. "You have 72 hours to comply with all regulations, or we'll begin foreclosure proceedings." "Foreclosure? You can't foreclose on property that's been in my family for. Read your deed restrictions." "Mr. Sterling, when Lakeside Estates was developed, all properties became subject to HOA governance. Even yours." She turned to leave, then paused. "Oh, and remove that unsightly chicken coop. It's not architecturally harmonious with the neighborhood aesthetic." As her Mercedes disappeared through the gates, I noticed my neighbor, James Grace, watching from his driveway. He walked over once she was gone. "She's getting worse," he said quietly. "Did you hear what she did to the Johnsons?" I shook my head. "Fined them $8,000 for their daughter's sidewalk chalk art. Called it vandalism of common areas. They're moving out." $8,000? For chalk?" James nodded. "She's driven out 6 families this year. Always targets people she considers undesirable. The Martinezes for their quinceañera party. The Washingtons for their Black Lives Matter flag. The Patels for their Diwali decorations." A pattern was forming in my mind. All minorities, or people who don't fit her vision of Lakeside Estates. James said, "She wants this place to look like a country club from 1950. Word is, she's getting kickbacks from her developer friends for every property that goes into foreclosure." That evening, I was in my workshop when I heard voices outside. Linda was giving what looked like a tour to 3 men in expensive suits. "The Sterling property is 5 acres of prime real estate," she was saying. "Once we force the foreclosure, you could build at least 12 luxury homes here. I've already started the violation process." One of the men, tall with silver hair, nodded approvingly. And our arrangement remains the same? 20% of the sale price? 25. Linda corrected. This one's been particularly stubborn. They shook hands, and I realized I was watching a conspiracy in action, but without proof. It was my word against the HOA president's. That night, I called my friend Detective Riley with Austin PD. Mike, I need your advice. I think our HOA president is running a foreclosure scam. Linda Whitmore? He whistled. We've had complaints. But she's smart. Always stays just inside the law. What's she done now? I explained the conversation I'd overheard. Mike was quiet for a moment. Marcus, be careful. We've been watching her for months. She's connected to some serious players in real estate. Document everything. But don't confront her directly. These people play dirty. The next morning, I installed security cameras around my property, high-definition ones with audio recording. If Linda was going to target me, I'd be ready. I didn't have to wait long. Thursday at 6 a.m. My cameras caught Linda and her enforcement team, 2 burly men in HOA polo shirts at my gate. The violation notice was delivered 48 hours ago. Linda announced to her phone, apparently live streaming, "We're here to document continued non-compliance at the Sterling property." They entered without permission. Linda narrating like a reality television host. As you can see, the illegal chicken coop remains. The oversized flag still flies in defiance of regulations. And look, motorcycle parts visible through the workshop window. Commercial activity in our residential paradise. One of her enforcement officers started photographing everything, while the other measured my grass with a ruler, 2.2 inches. Mrs. Whitmore, regulation maximum is 2 inches. Another violation? Linda said gleefully to her camera. This is what happens when people think they're above HOA rules. What she didn't know was that my cameras were catching everything, including when she whispered to her enforcer, "Check if he has any code violations inside. We need more ammunition for the foreclosure." The enforcer jimmied my workshop door while Linda kept live streaming, pretending not to notice. He emerged 5 minutes later, shaking his head. "Nothing obvious." "Ma'am." Linda's face darkened. "Then we make something obvious. Plant the code violation notices we discussed. Unsafe electrical. Unpermitted structures. Whatever it takes." My blood ran cold. They were literally fabricating violations. But I had it all on camera. Friday morning brought another surprise. I woke to find my American flag gone, my mailbox knocked over, and a bright orange violation vehicle improperly stored sticker on my truck. The truck parked in my own driveway. Linda appeared at 9 a.m. sharp with a tow truck. "Mr. Sterling, your vehicle is 2 inches over the property line. That's a common area violation. We're impounding it." 2 inches? Are you insane? She smiled coldly. "Measure it yourself." "Oh wait, you can't. It'll be in our impound lot. $500 per day storage fee." As the tow truck driver hooked up my truck, I noticed something. The driver looked uncomfortable, kept glancing at Linda nervously. "You okay, Mun?" I asked him quietly. He leaned in close. "She's making me do this. Says she'll shut down my business if I don't." "I'm sorry." Another piece of the puzzle. Linda wasn't just targeting homeowners. She was extorting local businesses too. That afternoon, I visited the HOA clubhouse to formally protest the violations. The receptionist, Maria, looked terrified when I walked in. "Mr. Sterling, I can't help you." Mrs. Whitmore said, "Anyone who accepts your protest forms will be terminated." "Maria, this is illegal. She can't, please," Maria whispered, tears in her eyes. "I need this job. My daughter's medical bills." Mrs. Whitmore already cut my hours when I questioned her about the Johnson family. "Just go." I left, but not before noticing the wall of shame, a bulletin board with photos of violators and their fines. The Johnsons, the Martinezes, the Washingtons, the Patels, and now me. All the families James had mentioned. That evening, while researching HOA law, I heard a commotion outside. Linda was in my driveway with a locksmith, installing a lock on my workshop door. "What the hell are you doing?" I shouted. Running outside. Safety violation. She said calmly. Your workshop is deemed hazardous. Locked until you pay for our approved inspector to clear it. Should only cost $3,000. You can't lock me out of my own building. She pulled out her phone and started recording. Mr. Sterling is becoming aggressive. I fear for my safety. Then, louder. Sir, please step back. You're threatening me. I hadn't moved an inch. But her performance was Oscar-worthy. Linda Whitmore fears no one, she announced to her camera, but I won't be intimidated by rule breakers. Lakeside Estates has standards. The locksmith finished and handed her the keys. My workshop with $20,000 of tools and equipment was now locked behind an HOA padlock. That night, I called my attorney friend, David Kim. They can't do this. Right? David Syed. Technically. If the HOA board voted to grant her emergency powers for safety violations, Marcus, she's built a legal maze. Fighting this could take years and cost more than your house is worth. So she wins? Unless you find proof of corruption? Real. Documented proof. Otherwise, she'll drain you dry with legal fees. I hung up feeling defeated. Then I remembered the cameras. I had proof, but I needed more. I needed to catch her admitting to the whole scheme. Saturday morning, Linda arrived with a film crew, an actual film crew with professional cameras and lighting. Welcome to OA Justice, she announced to the camera. Today, we're documenting the worst violator in Lakeside Estates history. They filmed her measuring my grass, now 3 inches after the rain, photographing my locked workshop, still non-compliant, and interviewing planted neighbors who complained about my chickens. But the real shock came when she produced a witness. This man, she said, gesturing to a stranger I'd never seen, reports seeing illegal activities in the Sterling workshop. Tell us what you saw. The man, clearly reading from a script, stammered, I saw, chemicals, dangerous chemicals, and people coming and going at all hours. Cash exchanges. Drug manufacturing? Linda gasped dramatically. In our family neighborhood? I stepped outside. That's a lie and you know it. Linda smiled triumphantly. There he is. Folks, the man who thinks rules don't apply to him. Tell me, Mr. Sterling, what's in your locked workshop that you don't want us to see? The workshop you locked, for safety reasons. If you have nothing to hide, pay for the inspection. It was a trap. Pay the inflated inspection fee and admit guilt. Or refuse and look suspicious. But I had an ace up my sleeve. My cameras had caught her coaching the witness 10 minutes earlier. As the film crew packed up, Linda approached me privately. This can all go away. Marcus, sell to my developer friends. Take the money and run. Otherwise, by next week, you'll owe $50,000 in fines and legal fees. Is that a threat? It's a promise. I've broken stronger men than you. The Johnsons fought for 6 months. Cost them their life savings. The Washingtons lasted 3. You? I give you another week. She leaned in closer, dropping her voice. You know what your real violation is? You don't belong here. This ranch, these chickens, this lifestyle, it's not the Lakeside Estates image. We're building something special here, and you're in the way. Special? You mean white and wealthy? Her mask slipped for just a second, revealing pure hatred. I mean refined, exclusive, profitable. She composed herself. 1 week, Mr. Sterling. Then things get serious. As she walked away, something caught my eye. A USB drive fell from her pocket onto my driveway. She didn't notice. Too busy basking in her power trip. I picked it up, and my hands started shaking. The label read, Sterling Property Phase 3. Phase 3? What were Phases 1 and 2? That night, I plugged in the USB. What I found made my blood run cold. Spreadsheets detailing kickbacks from developers. Email threads about targeting specific homeowners. Financial records showing millions in embezzled HOA funds. And a folder labeled Federal Investigation Confidential. My heart stopped. Federal investigation? I opened the folder and found FBI memos about HOA corruption rings across Texas. Linda Whitmore's name appeared dozens of times. The last document was dated a week ago, Undercover asset placement Lakeside Estates. That's when I realized the USB wasn't Linda's. Someone had planted it for me to find. But who? Sunday morning brought answers in the worst way. I woke to pounding on my door. Through the peephole, I saw Linda with 2 police officers. "Open up." "Sterling!" she shouted. "We have a warrant." "A warrant? For what?" I opened the door carefully. "Officers, what's going on?" Linda pushed past them, waving papers. "Anonymous tip about illegal substances in your workshop. These officers are here to investigate." One of the cops looked apologetic. "Sir, we have to check it out. Can you open the workshop?" "She has the keys. She locked it yesterday." Linda produced the keys with a flourish. "For safety reasons." "Officers, I'll assist." They opened my workshop and Linda rushed in, heading straight for a cabinet I rarely used. She opened it dramatically and gasped. "Officers, look what I found." She pulled out packages I'd never seen before. White powder in clear bags. "That's not mine," I shouted. "She planted that." The officers looked uncomfortable. One started photographing while the other called for backup. Linda was live streaming again. "Breaking news. Drug lab discovered in Lakeside Estates." I knew something was wrong here. My mind raced. She'd had the keys for less than 48 hours and had already planted evidence. But I had video of her directing the locksmith, her witness. "Everything?" "Officers," I said carefully, "I have security footage of Mrs. Whitmore accessing my workshop yesterday. I can prove those aren't mine." Linda's face flickered with worry before recovering. "Security footage can be edited. These drugs are real." More police arrived, including Detective Riley. He took one look at the scene and pulled me aside. "Marcus, don't say anything else. Get a lawyer. This is bigger than we thought." As crime scene tape went up around my workshop, Linda held court with growing media attention. News vans appeared within minutes suspiciously fast. "I've been investigating Mr. Sterling for months," she told reporters. "His violations were just the tip of the iceberg. This ranch has been a blight on our community." But she'd made a crucial mistake. In her excitement, she'd left her iPad in my workshop, and it was still recording. I watched from my window as the police processed the scene. Linda performed for the cameras, playing the heroic HOA president who'd exposed a dangerous criminal. Neighbors gathered, some looking shocked, others skeptical. Then James Grace did something unexpected. He walked up to the news cameras. "That's not true," he said loudly. "Marcus Sterling is a good man. Linda Whitmore has been targeting homeowners for months. She's the criminal here." Other neighbors started speaking up. Maria, the receptionist, pushed through the crowd. "Mrs. Whitmore threatened my job," she cried. "She made me help forge documents. The tow truck driver appeared. She forced me to illegally tow vehicles." Linda's composure cracked. "These people are lying. They're part of his drug ring." That's when I remembered the USB. If it contained FBI documents, maybe I should. "Detective Riley," I called out, "I found something you need to see." I handed him the USB, explaining where I'd found it. His eyes widened as he scrolled through the files on his phone. "Holy shit," he muttered. "Excuse me. Folks, I need to make a call." Linda saw him with the USB, and her face went white. She started backing away from the cameras. I need to go. HOA emergency," she stammered. "Mrs. Whitmore," a reporter called out. "Is it true you've been taking kickbacks from developers?" "No comment." "What about the families you've forced out through excessive fines?" "This interview is over." She tried to leave, but found her path blocked by angry neighbors. The Johnsons had returned, the Washingtons, the Martinezes, all the families she'd terrorized. "You destroyed our lives." Mrs. Johnson shouted, $8,000 for chalk. "You said our culture wasn't appropriate for Lakeside." Mr. Martinez added. The crowd grew angrier. Linda looked genuinely frightened for the first time. That's when we all heard it. A sound that would change everything. My workshop iPad, Linda's iPad, was still recording. And somehow, the audio was now playing through the HOA's PA system at the clubhouse. Her voice echoed across the entire community. "Plant the code violations. Whatever it takes. These people don't belong here. 25% kickback. Make something obvious. Every incriminating thing she'd said in my workshop blasted across Lakeside Estates. Someone had hacked the PA system and was broadcasting her confession. Linda's face went from white to purple. Turn it off, turn it off. But it kept playing. Her conversation with the developers, her threats to Maria, her admission about planting evidence. The police officers exchanged glances. One reached for his handcuffs. Mrs. Whitmore, we need to ask you some questions. She bolted, actually ran in her designer heels, heading for her Mercedes. But she didn't make it 10 feet before unmarked SUVs screeched into the scene, blocking every exit. Federal agents poured out, weapons drawn. FBI, nobody move. The lead agent, a woman in a bulletproof vest, approached Detective Riley. They conferred briefly. Then she turned to address everyone. I'm Special Agent Sarah Grace. We've been investigating HOA corruption in Texas for 2 years. Linda Whitmore, you're under arrest for racketeering, extortion, and conspiracy. Linda fell to her knees. You don't understand. I was making Lakeside Estates better. These people were ruining everything. As agents cuffed her, she looked directly at me with pure hatred. This isn't over. Sterling, you have no idea who you're messing with. The HOA board has also been arrested. Agent Grace interrupted. We picked them up an hour ago. The crowd erupted in cheers and applause. After months of terror, Linda Whitmore's reign was ending. But I noticed Agent Grace approaching me with a strange expression. Mr. Sterling, we need to talk. About that USB drive. My stomach dropped. Am I in trouble? No. But. She glanced around and lowered her voice. You weren't supposed to find that. It was meant for someone else. Someone inside Whitmore's organization. I don't understand. The USB contains evidence from our undercover operation. The fact that you have it means our assets cover might be blown. Asset? You mean someone's been undercover this whole time? She nodded grimly. Someone very close to Whitmore. Someone who's now in serious danger because that USB is missing. Before I could respond, we heard sirens. Not police sirens, fire trucks. Smoke was rising from the direction of the HOA clubhouse. They're burning evidence, someone shouted. Agent Grace spoke rapidly into her radio. All units to the clubhouse. They're destroying documents. As chaos erupted around us, she grabbed my arm. Mr. Sterling, I need you to come with us. For your safety, and to help us salvage this operation. But what about my workshop? The planted drugs? Forget about that. This is bigger than some planted evidence. The USB you found? It doesn't just implicate Linda Whitmore, it exposes a nationwide HOA corruption network worth hundreds of millions, and right now, you're the only civilian who's seen those files. We heard an explosion from the clubhouse. Windows shattered. People screamed. Through the smoke and chaos, I saw a figure emerge from the burning building, carrying boxes of documents. They wore a firefighter's jacket, but something was off. Agent Grace saw them too. Her hand went to her weapon. That's not a firefighter, she said. That's... The figure looked directly at us, and I gasped. I knew that face. Someone I'd trusted. Someone who'd been playing a much deeper game than anyone realized. The sound of approaching helicopters filled the air as federal agents surrounded the burning clubhouse, but my eyes were locked on the person in the firefighter's jacket, the one carrying evidence from the flames. It was Maria, the terrified receptionist, the woman who'd claimed Linda, threatened her job. She saw my shocked expression and smiled coldly. Nothing like the scared employee act she'd perfected. Hello? Marcus, she called out, her voice completely different, confident, dangerous. Thanks for finding my USB. Though you weren't supposed to get involved. Agent Grace drew her weapon. Federal agent, drop the boxes and put your hands up. Maria laughed. Agent Grace, we finally meet. Tell me, how many undercover assets did you think Linda had? Just me, or did you ever suspect? A gunshot rang out. Not from Agent Grace. From somewhere in the crowd. Maria stumbled, dropping the boxes. Papers scattered in the wind, financial records. Contracts. Names of other HOA presidents across the country. No, Agent Grace shouted. We need her alive. But Maria was already running, clutching her shoulder. She disappeared into the smoke as more explosions rocked the clubhouse. Agent Grace turned to me urgently. "Mr. Sterling, you're not safe here. There are others. This network, it's bigger than we thought. And now they all know you have their secrets." As she spoke, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. A digitally altered voice spoke. "Mr. Sterling, you have something that belongs to us. The real USB, not the decoy you gave the FBI." My blood froze. "What?" "Check your pocket." I reached into my jacket and felt something I hadn't noticed before. Another USB drive. "When had someone—" "Maria slipped it to you this morning," the voice continued, "when she was playing scared receptionist. That's the real evidence. The FBI USB was just bait. What you have now, that's worth killing for." "Who are you?" "Someone who knows Linda Whitmore was small time. A regional manager at best. The HOA network she reported to? We're in every state. Every gated community, every positions of power. And now, Mr. Sterling, you've seen too much." The line went dead. Agent Grace was coordinating the manhunt for Maria, but I could barely focus. I had another USB, the real one, and somehow, everyone knew it. "Agent Grace," I started to say, but she was already moving. "Federal protection." "Now," she barked into her radio, "we have a compromised witness." But even as FBI agents surrounded me, even as Linda Whitmore was driven away in custody, screaming about her innocence, I knew this was far from over. The HOA corruption network had just revealed itself, and I was holding evidence that could bring it all down, or get me killed trying. As they loaded me into a protective custody vehicle, I saw one last thing that chilled me to the bone. Across the street, watching from a neighbor's window, was another familiar face, someone else who'd been pretending all along. The person smiled and held up 3 fingers, then 2, then 1, a countdown. To what? I didn't know. But as sirens wailed and Lakeside Estates burned with the truth of its corruption, I realized my fight with Linda Whitmore had been just the beginning. The real war was about to begin, and I was carrying the evidence that would determine who won. The FBI safe house in downtown Austin felt more like a prison than protection. 4 days had passed since Linda Whitmore's arrest, since the Lakeside Estates clubhouse burned, since I discovered I was carrying evidence that could expose a nationwide criminal network disguised as homeowner associations. Agent Grace had explained it simply: "You stay here. You stay alive." But hiding wasn't living, and the USB drive hidden in my sock was burning a hole in my conscience. "We need to see what's on that drive," I told Agent Grace for the 100th time. We sat in the sterile kitchen, bulletproof windows blocking any view of the outside world. "Too dangerous," she replied automatically. "The moment we access it, they'll know. These people have connections everywhere: tech companies, law enforcement, government. We need to be strategic." Strategic? While they're out there destroying evidence and silencing witnesses? She leaned forward, exhaustion evident in her eyes. "Marcus, 3 HOA board members across Texas have died in accidents this week. 2 investigators had their homes mysteriously catch fire. Maria, or whatever her real name is, has vanished completely. These people don't play games." My phone, supposedly disconnected and secured, suddenly buzzed. We both froze. "That's impossible," Grace whispered, staring at the device like it might explode. The screen showed a video message. "Against every protocol." I played it. Linda Whitmore appeared, but not the Linda I knew. Gone was the HOA president power suit. She wore an orange jumpsuit, her face gaunt, eyes wild with fear. "Marcus Sterling," she said, glancing nervously off camera. "They're making me do this. The network. It's not what you think. It's not about money. It never was. The HOAs are just the beginning. They're building something. A system of control. Every gated community. Every neighborhood association. Every." The video cut to static. Then a new voice, digitally altered. "Mr. Sterling, your friend Linda talked too much. She's been relocated to a more secure facility, one where accidents happen. You have 24 hours to return what you stole, or you'll be visiting her there. Permanently. Agent Grace was already on her radio, barking orders about the breach. But I was thinking about Linda's words. Not about money? Then what? That night, I made a decision that would either save lives or end mine. While Agent Grace coordinated with her team, I slipped into the bathroom and retrieved the USB. If I was going to die for this information, I'd at least know what it contained. Using the ancient laptop they'd given me for entertainment, I disabled the Wi-Fi, created an encrypted partition, and plugged in the drive. What I found made my hands shake. The files weren't just financial records. They were blueprints for social engineering on a massive scale. Every HOA in the network was collecting data on residents' political affiliations, financial status, family connections, vulnerabilities. They were using fines and violations to drive out undesirable elements, replacing them with carefully selected residents. But the most chilling file was labeled Project Homestead. It outlined a 10-year plan to control local elections through HOA voter blocks. They'd already installed 17 mayors, 43 city council members, and over 100 school board officials across 12 states. The goal was to build a shadow government, starting at the community level and working up. One document made my blood freeze. Phase 4 implementation, federal level. Target date, November 2028. They weren't just corrupt, they were attempting a slow-motion coup, one neighborhood at a time. I was so absorbed in the files I didn't hear the door open. When a hand touched my shoulder, I nearly jumped out of my skin. But it wasn't Agent Grace. It was Maria. She stood there in a federal agent's uniform, badge, and all, pointing a gun at my head. Her wounded shoulder was bandaged, but her grip was steady. Hello again. Marcus, thanks for keeping that safe for me. How did you get in? Same way I got into Linda's inner circle. Same way I've gotten everywhere for the past 5 years. She smiled coldly. People see what they expect to see. A scared receptionist. A federal agent. A helpful neighbor. It's amazing what doors open when you look the part. You're not working for the HOA network? Her laugh was bitter. Working for them? I created them. Well, the enforcement arm anyway. Linda thought she was a queen, but she was just middle management. Useful for her connections and cruelty, but ultimately disposable. Then why the act? Why let the FBI arrest her? Because she was getting sloppy. Drawing attention, the feds were closing in anyway. So I fed them Linda as a distraction. Let them think they'd won while I cleaned house. She gestured at the laptop. But you found the real prize. The names? The plans. Everything we've built. This is insane. You can't actually think that we'll succeed? Maria moved closer, her gun never wavering. We already have. Check your precious files again. See who signs the HOA contracts. Who approves the regulation changes? Who sits on the boards? I glanced at the screen and felt sick. Judges, police chiefs, state senators, even 2 federal prosecutors. Every gated community is a kingdom. Maria continued. Every HOA president, a duke or duchess in our new feudal system. We don't need to overthrow the government. We're becoming the government. One neighborhood at a time. People will figure it out. They'll resist, will they? When we control their property values? When we can destroy their lives with fines and liens? When their own neighbors enforce our rules? She shook her head. Americans gave up freedom for the illusion of safety and property values long ago. We're just formalizing the arrangement. The door burst open. Agent Grace entered with 3 other agents. Weapons drawn. Drop the gun, Grace commanded. Maria smiled. Sarah Grace. I was wondering when you'd join us. She kept her weapon trained on me. Tell me, Agent Grace, did you ever wonder how we always stayed one step ahead? How witnesses disappeared before you could reach them? Grace's face remained stoic, but I saw doubt flicker in her eyes. Maria continued. Check your team. Sarah, really check them. Badge number 47921. Ring any bells? One of Grace's agents suddenly turned his weapon on his colleagues. Sorry, boss. Nothing personal. The room erupted in chaos. Gunfire. Shouts. Bodies diving for cover. I hit the floor. Laptop clutched to my chest. As bullets shattered the bulletproof windows that weren't so bulletproof after all, when the smoke cleared, Maria and the corrupt agent were gone. Agent Grace was wounded but alive. Pressing her hand to a bleeding arm, the other two agents were down. "We need to move," Grace gasped. "Now." I helped her to the garage, where a nondescript sedan waited. As we peeled out, she made a call on a burner phone. "This is Grace. Code Black. The network has infiltrated federal level. Trust no one." Repeat. Trust no one. We drove in silence for 10 minutes before she spoke again. "That USB, you still have it?" I nodded. "Good. We're going off-grid. I know someone who can help. Someone the network hasn't reached." "How can you be sure?" "Because he's the one who started investigating them 15 years ago. Before anyone believed a bunch of suburban HOAs could be a threat." She managed a grim smile. "My grandfather, retired FBI, lives completely off-grid in West Texas. If anyone can help us expose this, it's him." We drove through the night, changing vehicles twice, always watching for surveillance. As dawn broke, Grace pulled into a truck stop. "We need supplies. Food, water, burner phones. Pay cash only." Inside, while Grace gathered provisions, I noticed a television showing local news. My face was on screen. "Wanted for questioning in connection with domestic terrorism. Marcus Sterling is considered armed and extremely dangerous. If you see him, do not approach." Grace appeared beside me. "They're framing you. Standard network procedure, destroy credibility. Isolate the target, then eliminate it." My phone, the one they'd supposedly secured, buzzed again. This time, a text. "Your ranch, 1 hour. Come alone or we burn everything. Starting with the chickens." My blood boiled. Those bastards were threatening my chickens. "It's a trap," Grace said immediately. "I know, but they'll destroy my home. Kill innocent animals." "I can't. Marcus, that's exactly what they want. You go there." I thought about my ranch, my father's legacy, my simple life that Linda Whitmore had shattered. Then I thought about the files on the USB, the nationwide conspiracy, the thousands of families who'd suffer if Project Homestead succeeded. "What if we turn their trap against them?" I said slowly. "What if we give them exactly what they want, but not how they expect?" Grace raised an eyebrow. "I'm listening. They want the USB and me silenced." "Fine. But what if we broadcast everything first? Live stream the whole thing? With what platform? They control." "Not everything." I pulled out the laptop. "Remember Linda's live streams? She used the HOA's own emergency broadcast system. It connects to every house in Lakeside Estates, plus feeds to local news for community alerts." Grace's eyes widened. "You want to hijack their own network?" Maria said people see what they expect. They expect me to come alone. Scared. Ready to bargain. Instead, I show up with cameras rolling and expose everything. Live. Before they can stop it. That's insane. Grace paused. It might actually work. We spent 30 minutes preparing. Grace would position herself with a sniper rifle while I wore multiple hidden cameras. The USB's contents were uploaded to deadman switches if I didn't input a code every hour. Everything would auto-publish to hundreds of news outlets. As I drove toward my ranch, I thought about how this started. Linda measuring my grass, fining me for chickens. Now I was about to expose a conspiracy that reached the highest levels of power. My ranch looked untouched from the outside, but I knew better. They were here, watching, waiting. I parked and activated the first camera. Linking to the HOA emergency system, Grace had helped me hack. "Hello? Lakeside Estates," I said to the camera. "This is Marcus Sterling. In a few minutes, you're going to see something that affects every one of you. Every homeowner in every HOA across America. Movement in my peripheral vision. 3 men in tactical gear emerging from positions. Not HOA enforcement. These were professionals. Mr. Sterling." A familiar voice called out. "That's far enough." Maria stepped out from my workshop. But she wasn't alone. Behind her stood 5 HOA presidents from neighboring communities. I recognized them from the USB files, all high-ranking network members. But the real shock was who stood with them. Judge Patricia Morrison, Sheriff Kyle Brennan, even Congressman Richard Vail. Quite the gathering, I said, making sure the camera caught every face. All here for little old me? Turn off the camera. Marcus, Maria said calmly, this doesn't have to end badly. For who? I pulled out the USB, holding it high. You want this? Let me tell the good people of Lakeside Estates what's really on it. Marcus, Congressman Vail stepped forward, his campaign smile in place. You don't understand the full picture. We're not villains. We're trying to save American communities from chaos, from degradation, by controlling who lives where, by driving out families who don't fit your vision, by maintaining standards, one of the HOA presidents snapped, by preserving property values and community cohesion. I laughed. Community cohesion? You mean racial purity? Economic segregation? I've seen your files. The demographic targets, the political screening, those are taken out of context. Judge Morrison said smoothly, we simply believe communities function better when residents share common values. Values you determine. Elections you control. Laws you manipulate. I turned to the camera. Folks, these people have spent years building a shadow government through your HOAs. They've stolen millions in false fines, driven out families based on race and politics, and plan to control elections from city council to Congress. Enough, Maria raised her gun. Camera off. Now, shoot me on live broadcast. I'm sure that'll help your cause. She hesitated, and in that moment, I heard the most beautiful sound in the world. Sirens. Dozens of them. Getting closer. Agent Grace's voice crackled through my hidden earpiece. Federal backup incoming. Real feds this time. Your broadcast worked. Every news station in Texas is picking it up. The network members looked at each other nervously. This wasn't part of their plan. It's over. I said, the whole country is watching. Your network is exposed. Maria's composure finally cracked. You think you've won? You have no idea how deep this goes. Every HOA in America will be investigated, every president scrutinized, every bylaw challenged. I stepped forward. You built your empire on fear and conformity, but you forgot something. Americans don't like being told what to do in their own homes. The sirens were deafening now. Black SUVs and police cars surrounded the ranch. Federal agents poured out, weapons drawn. Everyone on the ground, now. Some complied. Others ran. Maria made a break for my workshop, probably hoping to destroy evidence. She didn't make it. Agent Grace's shot was perfect, non-lethal, dropping Maria before she reached the door. As federal agents arrested the network members, I noticed something that made me smile. My neighbors from Lakeside Estates were arriving. The Johnsons, the Martinezes, the Washingtons, the Patels, even Walter and James. They'd been watching the broadcast and came to support me. We've got your back. Marcus, someone shouted. No more HOA tyranny, another added. Congressman Vail was shouting about immunity as they cuffed him. Judge Morrison threatened lawsuits. Sheriff Brennan demanded professional courtesy, but their power was broken. The network they'd spent years building was crumbling on live television. Agent Grace appeared beside me. Her grandfather, a tough-looking old man with sharp eyes at her side. Outstanding work. Son, he said, been trying to nail these bastards since 2008. You did in a week what I couldn't do in 15 years. I had help. I looked at Grace, and a really good reason to fight. As the last network member was driven away, I surveyed my ranch. My workshop was open again. My chickens pecked peacefully in their coop. The American flag, slightly oversized, flew proudly. So what happens now? I asked Grace. Now, we dismantle their entire network? Every HOA they corrupted gets investigated. Every family they drove out gets justice. Every stolen dollar gets returned. She smiled. Want a job? FBI could use someone with your instincts? I laughed. Thanks. But I've had enough excitement. I just want to fix motorcycles and raise chickens. And run for HOA president? God no. I'm abolishing the HOA. Let people live their lives. That evening, the ranch was full of neighbors celebrating. Someone had brought BBQ. Others brought drinks. The Johnsons had returned to Lakeside Estates, their fines reversed, their savings restored. Sophie Martinez approached me with tears in her eyes. My family can come home. After 2 years, We can finally come home. Stories like hers poured in all night. Families reunited. Homes sobbed. Lives rebuilt. The national news coverage was explosive. Oh, Mafia exposed. The suburban shadow government. How your neighborhood association became a criminal enterprise. Within a week, 17 states launched investigations into their HOAs. Hundreds of presidents resigned. Thousands of homeowners demanded reform. But the best moment came a month later. Linda Whitmore, now cooperating with federal authorities, sent another video message, this time from an actual federal prison, not the network's secure facility. "Mr. Sterling," she said, looking healthier but humbled, "I owe you an apology and an explanation. I started out really believing in community standards, in making neighborhoods better, but somewhere along the way, power corrupted me. The network found my weakness, my need for control, and exploited it." She paused, genuine regret in her eyes. "I became a monster, hurt good families, destroyed lives, all for the approval of people who saw me as disposable. Thank you for stopping me. For stopping all of us." The video ended with her final words. "To everyone in Lakeside Estates, I'm sorry. Your grass height never mattered. Your mailbox color was fine. And Marcus, your chickens are delightful." I couldn't help but smile. Even Linda Whitmore had found redemption. 6 months passed. Lakeside Estates transformed from a fortress of rules to an actual community. The HOA was dissolved, replaced by a voluntary neighborhood association focused on genuinely helping residents. No fines, no violations, no tyranny. I was feeding my chickens one morning when a government sedan pulled up. My hand tensed until I saw Agent Grace emerge. "More conspiracies?" I asked. She grinned. "Actually, the opposite. Thought you'd want to know. We tracked down the last of the network leadership. Maria flipped. Gave us everything. Project Homestead is officially dead. And Maria? Witness protection after she serves 15 years. Could have been life. But her cooperation saved hundreds of families from losing their homes." We stood in comfortable silence, watching the chickens scratch for bugs. "You know," Grace said, "offer still stands. FBI could use you. Thanks. But I'm good here. Though," I pulled out a flyer, "I am running for city council. Figure someone should keep an eye on local government." Grace laughed. "From fighting hoes to joining government? Careful, you don't become what you fought against. Never. I've seen what happens when power goes unchecked. When communities become kingdoms and neighbors become enforcers." I looked at my ranch. My piece of American freedom. Democracy isn't just about voting. It's about vigilance. About standing up to tyranny. Even when it comes disguised as property values and community standards. Grace nodded. "Well said. Though I have one more surprise for you." She handed me an envelope. Inside was a check for $2.5 million. "What's this?" "Reward money." Turns out the network had been defrauding the federal government too. Tax evasion. "Mostly. You get 10% of what we recovered thanks to your evidence." I stared at the check. "This is..." I don't know what to say. Say you'll use it to help the families they hurt. Maybe a legal fund for HOA abuse victims? That's actually perfect. As Grace drove away, I thought about the journey from that morning when Linda measured my grass to now. A nationwide conspiracy exposed, hundreds of corrupt officials arrested, thousands of families freed from tyranny, all because I refused to bow to a petty tyrant with a ruler and a grudge. That night, Lakeside Estates held its first annual Freedom Festival, a celebration of the day the HOA fell. No permits required, no noise ordinances, no aesthetic guidelines, just neighbors being neighbors. As fireworks lit up the sky, technically illegal under the old HOA rules, I raised a toast to Linda Whitmore, who taught us that the price of freedom is eternal vigilance, to every family who stood up to tyranny, and to the simple truth that no one, no HOA, no network, no shadow government has the right to tell Americans how to live on their own land. The crowd erupted in cheers. Somewhere in federal prison. I hoped Linda heard them. The HOA mafia was dead, but the lesson lived on. Power corrupts, but community endures. And sometimes, all it takes to topple an empire is one person willing to say no to a 2.25-inch grass measurement. As the party continued, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. Then curiosity won. Mr. Sterling, this is Jackie Thompson from Pine Ridge Estates in Colorado. We've got an HOA situation here. President's demanding DNA tests for dogs, claiming breed restrictions. We heard what you did in Texas. Can you help? I looked at the celebration around me, at the freed families, at the restored community. Send me the details. I said, looks like the Sterling Foundation for HOA Reform just got its first case. Because tyranny never sleeps. But neither do those who've tasted freedom, and somewhere out there, another HOA president was about to learn what happens when you push Americans too far. The revolution had begun, one neighborhood at a time. As I hung up the phone, my laptop chimed with an encrypted message. My blood ran cold when I saw the sender. Maria, from federal custody. Marcus, you think you won? But Homestead was just one project. The network has contingencies you can't imagine. Check your mailbox. M. Against my better judgment, I walked to my mailbox. Inside was a single photograph. Agent Grace at a coffee shop. A red laser dot on her forehead. On the back, written in Maria's handwriting, the revolution has rules. Break them. And people D. I immediately called Grace. Get to safety. Now. Maria's not done. Already in motion, Grace replied. Her voice tense. We just intercepted chatter about Project Haven Homestead's successor. They're regrouping in California. Gated communities in Silicon Valley. Tech money. I realized. Infinite resources. Exactly. Marcus. This isn't over. It's evolving. I looked back at the celebration. At the freed families laughing and dancing. We'd won this battle. But the war for America's neighborhoods had just begun. Then we evolved too. I said, the Sterling Foundation goes national tomorrow. Because every revolution needs its guardians. And every neighborhood deserves freedom. The HOA wars weren't ending, they were just getting started.